In this video, I'm going to lay out everything you need to improve on keyboard and mouse, from peripherals, settings, to mechanics, and more. All the timestamps are going to be down below, so skip to whatever part of the video you need. Let's hop straight into it. The first thing I'm going to talk about is all of the peripherals I use and recommend. I use a SteelSeries Apex Pro Mini. In my opinion, the only comparable keyboard is the Wooting, but I love the Apex Pro Mini. I use a Glorious Stealth wrist rest, which just goes underneath your keyboard to hold your wrist up. It's a healthy thing. Currently, I've been using a Razer DeathAdder Pro mouse, but I also very much love the G Pro Superlight. I have an extra large Artisan Hein mouse pad, and I recommend using the soft or extra soft. Me personally, I prefer soft. When it comes to headsets, it is totally personal preference. I use a Beyerdynamic headset connected to a Go XLR, but once again, totally personal preference. You can definitely get one much cheaper. My chair, I literally just went to like an Office Max and sat in every single chair. I have no idea what the brand of it is. Literally, that's what I recommend doing. Just go to an Office Max and buy a chair there. I ended up getting like the cheapest chair at the store, and it was my favorite. I've used it for 2 years. My monitor is a 360 hertz Alienware monitor. It's like top of the line, but you know, I would just recommend getting a monitor that matches your frame rate and that's in your budget. I personally don't think monitors matter that much either beyond their FPS and size. I recommend getting a 24 to 25 inch monitor personally, but you do you and get a max FPS that your PC can run. And finally, my PC, I bought a pre-built one. I just went on NZXT and pretty much bought the most expensive one because, you know, I do this for a living. I'm not the guy to ask when it comes to PC recommendations. I'm going to be honest. I did not do much research at all, but I would just recommend going through Reddit forums, asking friends. Most people recommend building your own PC. So yeah, I'm gonna leave that one up to you guys. Sorry about that. Now you might be wondering, you know, if you have a certain amount of money, which things in your setup should you update first? The most important things in a setup, in my opinion, are the mouse pad, mouse, and your FPS. Upgrading those things before anything else is most important. Like, don't go buy a $150 keyboard when you have a really bad mouse. Mouse should be priority one. When it comes to getting a new keyboard, getting a new wrist rest, a new chair, that stuff is all really like about comfort. So if you're trying to up your game, mouse pad, and FPS are going to be the biggest factors. Obviously, if your keyboard like doesn't work, yeah, go get a new one, but that's my advice. Moving on to part 2 of the video, which is settings. And now, guys, don't be mad at me, but I literally just made a whole video breaking down settings, how to improve your own settings. I actually lay out a set of settings that you can use, sensitivity, all that stuff is in that video, so I linked that down in the description. So if you're new to Fortnite, keyboard and mouse, all that stuff, I'd watch that video, but I am going to talk about one thing in this video, which is your sensitivity. So many people, especially new people to keyboard and mouse, have way too high of sensitivities. 99% of pros on keyboard and mouse use as low of a sensitivity as possible. It's really good to use your entire arm for aiming and building in this game. Other games, you know, like Valorant, maybe you'd be just using your wrist, but Fortnite is very much an arm game. So I put my sensitivity on the screen right now. It's 3.7 X and Y, 1600 DPI. Usually you can change your DPI either directly on your mouse by pressing a button or by going into a software where you can change your DPI there, such as a SteelSeries software if you use a SteelSeries mouse. But if you're trying to find your sensitivity, do this. Go into a creative match and move your mouse from one side of your mouse pad to the other. Not the entire mouse pad, but only the amount of mouse pad space you can use comfortably. So as soon as your arm starts to feel like it's kind of like bent awkwardly, stop moving it. When you do this, when you move your arm from one side to the other, you should only spin in 1 to 2 circles. 1.5 circles is probably the sweet spot. If you're spinning like 2 to 3 times or 5 times when moving your mouse from one side to the other, you're one of the people whose sensitivity is way too high. To some of you, this may seem crazy, but I swear most pros have lower sensitivities. If you're switching from a higher sensitivity to a lower sensitivity, it's going to be very tough at first. You're probably going to feel like quitting after a day, but if you stick with it for a week or two, I promise it is going to start to click and you're going to get so much better, so much faster. So stick with it. All right, part 3 of this video is a little bit of a sidetrack, but it's super good advice if you're trying to improve at keyboard and mouse. Like if you've ever been stuck at one level for a long time at something, this is how you break out of that. We're gonna start this out with a metaphor. If you go to the gym, you're working out, you're trying to get bigger, trying to start lifting more weights. You're not going to get bigger or get to the heavier weights unless you push yourself. If you're just doing a workout casually, you don't actually struggle while lifting those weights, you know, you're not gonna get bigger. So the reason I say this is it's the exact same for keyboard and mouse, or any skill really. You need to push yourself like crazy when practicing, and if you do that, you're going to get better so fast. So an example of this, let's say you're free building in Fortnite, just building around practicing. If you're just doing stuff you already know how to do, you're not going to get better. But if you're trying to edit course faster than you've ever edit course before, to the point where your arm is feeling like it's gonna fall off, that's going to make you better. If you're building in a map where you can change the speed and like build in fast motion like I'm doing here, if you go crazy in fast motion to the point where your arm's falling off, then you go back to normal speed, it's going to feel like you're building in slow motion. It's going to feel so much easier. So that's the concept I want you guys to think about anytime you're practicing. It's okay to have days where you're just chilling, playing with friends. I'm just talking about for those days where you're on the grind, you know what I mean? So that leads us into the rest of the video where I'm going to talk about how to improve. The first thing I want to talk about is mouse control. Mouse control is the ability to move your mouse accurately at all points in time. So when you're tracking an enemy, you're tracking them very smoothly. It's not shaky and stuff like that. When you're doing flick shots, it's accurate, quick, and consistent. If you improve your mouse control, all aspects of your game will improve: crosshair placement, aim, and building speed. So how do you improve mouse control? The first way is getting a good sensitivity, like I talked about in part 2 of this video. You'll also improve by just playing the game more. The more you play, that mouse control will improve, yeah. But the best way to improve, in my opinion, is doing an aim trainer like Kovacs. Specifically, I like Kovacs because it tracks your high scores for every single drill you do, and that will help you push yourself to the next level. I've also found like god tier drills on Kovacs, which I'm going to give you guys. The reason they're so good is because they're difficult. So I've linked my Kovacs drills down in the description. The way you get to them is by copying that share code and posting it down here in the bottom left of the screen. I use the advanced drills. These drills are absolutely insane, but they're really difficult. So if you're newer to keyboard and mouse, definitely start out on those beginner and intermediate drills. Now, my 3 quick pieces of advice for Kovacs. 1, make sure you're doing an even amount of flick drills and tracking drills. 2, make sure you don't just do those drills one time. You don't have to go through the whole playlist every single time you're in here, but pick a few drills and do those drills like 4 times in a row or 3 times in a row rather than just once. And the third piece of advice is do drills that challenge you. If they feel impossible, that's okay. Every time you do it, you'll be a little bit better, and eventually that drill might become easy to you. I'll warn you though, the advanced drills never will become easy, which is a good thing. Now, part 5 of the video, we're basically at the point where you're just on your normal grind to improve in Fortnite. So for the final part, I'm going to give you the 4 steps to improve in Fortnite and get to that point where you can start winning ranked games and maybe even competing in tournaments. So step 1 is just getting comfortable with the fundamentals of the game on keyboard and mouse. Some of you might already be past this point, but if you're not, in the description I have 2 maps that lay out all the fundamental moves and actually teach you them. Those 2 maps are the how to piece control map and the how to build map. The piece control one will teach you basically how to fight in the game and give you some scenarios to practice on. And the how to build map will give you all the fundamental build moves of the game, like tunneling, side jumps, how to edit course, and stuff like that. So lots of stuff to learn in those maps, but I would only recommend doing that for like 30 minutes at the start of the day. If you're feeling crazy one day, yeah, sit in it for 3 hours and just go berserk. But it can get boring, doing that simple stuff. So after 30 minutes, move on to one of the other steps. Step 2 is pressure training. And pressure training is something that you'll always do, but I put it as step 2 because it's great for getting comfortable on keyboard and mouse. So there's lots of ways to do pressure training. I, of course, recommend my map Forever Zone Wars, but any fast-paced map will work. Forever Zone Wars just throws you into a tiny zone where you're fighting 14 players, and anytime you die, you respawn. But again, any fast-paced map that forces you to build, edit, and shoot at a fast pace with no breaks, those maps will do as well. The reason pressure training is so important early on keyboard and mouse is because that's how you're going to stop choking your binds. If you're in a fight in ranked and it's going too fast paced for you and you start like messing up edits and stuff, that means you probably need more pressure training, some of this fast paced practice. Step 3 is fighting training. Sure, you can get fighting training in ranked, but here's the problem. You fight much less players in ranked. It's good because you fight a very wide variety of players, but the best way to get fighting training is by doing 1v1s. The key is though, you have to be 1v1ing people that give you a challenge. If you're 10-0ing the people you're 1v1ing, you're not going to get better. There's a few good 1v1 maps. I have one called All-in-One 1v1s. It puts you into box fights, zone wars, build fights, and realistic fights. Just cycles between those modes. But the other 1v1 map I recommend is Speed Realistics by Ken Beans. Do me a favor, play Ken Beans map, not Finest. Now you can also get fighting training in 2v2s and 3v3s. You don't have to do 1v1s. Same applies for mechanics training. You could also do duo Forever Zone Wars or trios if you want to practice with friends. The last thing for the fighting training part of this video is if you're newer to fighting, I definitely recommend watching fighting breakdowns. I have a lot on my channel where I just break down fights in slow motion. motion. My previous video was exactly that. I just broke down some of my ranked fights. So finding those around YouTube can definitely help as well. Now finally, step 4 is the part you've been working towards this entire video. Finally, you're hopping into ranked scrims and tourneys. When you're at this step, of course, do a nice warm-up at the start of the day. You know, doing 1v1s and pressure training is something you're going to be doing all of time if you want to get better, just as a warm-up at the start of the day, and then you hop into ranked and stuff. Those are the 4 simple steps to improve at Fortnite. I do have lots of other tutorials on my channel with more advanced breakdowns of fights, games, how to improve in tourneys. So if you're on your grind to go pro, make sure you sub, because I have lots of other content coming soon. On that note, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.